Good evening all and welcome to the Council meeting. I am Councillor Preeti Hudd, the Mayor. May I welcome members of the public and request that apart from the 72-second silence, you remain seated for the Council proceedings unless you wish to leave the chamber. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the Council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72-second silence now. Would everyone please stand? Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Are they agreed? Does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? I would now like to welcome relatives of Kojo Yanga, a 16-year-old who was a victim of knife crime and who are here for one of the public speaking questions. It is with sadness that I must inform Council of the deaths of two former senior officers, Alan Taylor, who was the Chief Executive here from 1990 until his retirement in 2000, and Craig Wilson, who worked here from 1978 to 2005 and was Director of Transportation and Highways from 1996 to 2005. Our thoughts and prayers are with his families. Does any member wish to say anything? Councillor Wheel.
Are as distinguished as these two. There we go. Alan Taylor was possibly the last of a breed of chief executive and town clerk. He had been a borough solicitor, and when he came here to us, one of his previous roles had been as a solicitor in Plymouth, and and he'd been the returning officer in a notorious election where there were 7 recounts during the night, and the seat changed hands at least once during the night, in the end being retained by Labour. And I think probably that rather terrifying experience prepared him for life in Kensington and Chelsea. He moved us to a new, more modern committee system while he was our chief executive, and in fact laid the foundations and preparations for moving to the cabinet system that we have now. So it's with great sadness that I hear of his death. I'd also like to make a few comments about Craig Wilson, who was a lovely, warm, intelligent officer who was incredibly good at dealing with both members, which is a skill all of its own, and the public. I think it was he really who established the ethos in this council of highways maintenance and our investment in it, believing that maintaining our highways is cheaper in the long run. And as a cyclist in this borough compared to all our surrounding boroughs, I have cause to thank him every day for the superior surface on our roads, which actually is a very important safety consideration. He's also the officer who extended the controlled parking zone to the north of the borough, which I can tell you was a brave and resolute activity. It was about the most contentious thing that happened in my first years on the council, and you can sort of hardly believe it now, but it was incredibly contentious. It did need to be done, and I think we should be grateful to him for that. He led a very active retirement, which he appeared to enjoy to the full and which he thoroughly deserved. So once again, I'm sad to hear of his death, and the council should extend their thanks for his service.
Thank you. Anyone else? On a happy note, I can inform the Council that the following residents have been recognised by His Majesty the King in the New Year's honours. One person in the borough has been awarded an OBE, William Solomon, President, Young Enterprise. Those awarded the MBE, Jacqueline Ferguson, President, London College of Dance Network and volunteer, Health Watch. Louisa Jane Mitchell, Chief Executive, West London Zone. One person in the borough who was awarded the BEM, Ian Henderson, former councillor, Kensington Chelsea, London Borough Council. Congratulations to them all. And do any members wish to speak? Councillor Will.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say a few brief words about Louisa Mitchell, who I've had really the great good fortune to work with since about 2016. And I think Louisa sums up all that is best in our residents in this borough. So she was the first and only chief exec of a new charity called the West London Zone that specifically works in our schools with the most underprivileged and vulnerable children, but not those who are necessarily on the register of social services. She came to us with great passion in 2016 to try and get us to start working with her, and we did that. We commissioned them first in 2017, and since that work that she's doing, she started in 6 schools, has grown and grown, and I know she has really changed the lives of those children. She is a fantastically passionate, intelligent, caring lady, and she has really put her heart and soul into not only supporting our children, but in fact across the West London Zone. And once again, congratulations to her, and my great gratitude for the work she's done.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Randall.
Councillor Fox first now.
Okay, Councillor.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Will, for your warm words. Likewise, I've actually known Louisa for over 20 years because she was the director of the Whitley Fund for Nature, a wildlife charity that I'm also a trustee of. And when she was the director of that, she had such vision and ambition for it to become the best charity. So when I saw that she had become the chief executive of West London Zone, I just went, hallelujah, we're going to have someone who really will be championing a charity that had been going for a couple of years before she took the helm and had just done a pilot in Hammersmith. But she absolutely expanded it to now work in Hammersmith, Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster. Emma has covered a lot, but I just want to reiterate how incredibly lucky we are to have somebody. She now has engaged 4,500 children every year. She's working in 66 different school settings, and she also is in partnership with 50 different charities. So we are really lucky to have such intelligent, caring and passionate people who work alongside us to help our children. She's made so much difference. So congratulations, Louisa. You thoroughly deserve your honour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to speak of our award winner for the BEM, Ian Henderson, who was a former Labour councillor here for Culver Ward between 2018 and 2022. Now, Ian is a resident of mine in Stanley Ward, and Ian is such a community-focused person. You see him, what he did, Madam Mayor, for the Sutton estate was absolutely amazing. He corralled the council, residents and everyone else to ensure that Clarion did not refurbish or knock down the estate in a manner that they wanted to. And I think in itself, that is an amazing achievement for anyone to run and to hold. He is such a character, Madam Mayor, down in Chelsea. When you do see him, he's always impeccably dressed with his hat on and his coat, and everyone knows him. Everyone knows Ian's passion and for community spirit, and what a great job he did as well, Madam Mayor, in Culver Ward as well, getting the murals down Portobello Road, ensuring that the market traders were well represented, and I must say, an expert in scrutiny. I don't forget. I always remember my first scrutiny meetings, Madam Mayor, when he was against Councillor Taylor Smith and Doug Goldring, who's our Director of Housing Management, really doing the good job of scrutinising what we can do better as a council and ensuring that the best residents can get the best results from our social housing. So I'd just like to congratulate him on his BEM and wish him all the luck for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, please.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I've known William Solomon for probably coming up to 30 years now, and so I was absolutely thrilled when I saw that he'd got an OBE in the New Year's Honours List. I've seen how generous he is with both his time and his finances in helping those in the borough and beyond. Not only is he the UK President of Young Enterprise, which helps young people with life skills, confidence and knowledge, but also he's been very generous benefactor to the Clement James Centre in the north of the borough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I shall now ask the Chief Executive to report apologies for absence or lateness from this meeting.
I've received apologies from Councillors Mona Adam, Dahabo Issi, Quentin Marshall, Tim Verboven. I've also received apologies for lateness from Councillors Pascal, Schmetterling and Yankson. Sorry, Councillor Yankson has now joined us. Apologies.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, hello.
Hi,
hello, Councillor.
We have apologies due to illness from Councillor El Nagi.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is public speaking. I will invite those who have registered in advance to speak to address Council in turn for no more than 5 minutes each. A member of the leadership team and member of the principal minority party will then be able to respond for up to 2 minutes each. We have 8 people who have requested to speak. Therefore, I invite everyone to be as brief as possible. The purpose of this part of the Council meeting is for those who live, work or go to school in the borough to raise issues of local concern, so I would like to thank the speakers for coming along tonight, but would also remind them to bear this in mind when it's their turn to speak. I shall ask any speakers who reach their 5 minutes to bring their address promptly to a close to ensure that all speakers have a fair and equal opportunity to be heard and to receive responses from the councillors. I am going to read out a question on behalf of a resident who wishes to remain anonymous, but whose details have been given to the relevant officers. The subject matter of the question is entirely valid, and I am happy to read it out, but having taken advice from the monitoring officer, I have omitted parts of the question that I believe are inappropriate. Public speakers are expected to adhere to the rules of the council meetings, which include not imputing motives to or making reflections of a personal nature about a councillor. Why was the Coronation Court Residents Association City Living Local Life Fund application refused? On what basis do councillors get the councillor allowance if they fail to attend to their councillors' duties and engage with the residents? Councillor Addenbrooke, would you like to provide a response, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for reading out the question. It is clear there are 2 parts to this question, so I shall address them separately. Regarding the City Living Local Life funding, The rules are quite clear that an application requires unanimous support from the ward councillors, where the application was made to receive funding. Whilst most ward councillors are able to reach a unanimous decision, we do have some wards which there is an issue, and we are looking to address this. I have spoken to some of the councillors. I had hoped that we would now be in a position that we could move forward, but there's been a slight hiccup. So I'm hoping that in the next few weeks that this will be resolved. With regard to the councillors' basic allowance, this is paid to each of the Royal Borough 50 councillors and is not performance related. There are recommendations and expectations, but each councillor is free to determine how best to serve their residents. The mechanisms they use to do this and the amount of time they dedicate to their councillor role. So if the person who submitted this question has any concerns over a councillor's conduct, I recommend they contact the monitoring officer, who can then advise them on how to progress their concerns. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ali, you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Councillor Edinburgh mentioned, the question has 2 parts, so let me deal with the first part initially. There was an issue for the CLL money, as the lead member mentioned, but I'm pleased to inform the Council and everyone else listening that this issue is now being resolved, although it's now 1 week later than expected. And I'm reassuring my residents and residents of the RBKC that we will, especially in the north, and where the residents, we don't know the resident's name, but I wish we would know so that we can have a meeting, and happy to meet with our residents to make sure that they will understand, or he or she will understand the process. But moving forward, I'm confident that the residents will get the support they require, providing that we have got the money to deal with it. And having my last conversation with the lead member, I think we're making progress, and I hope that the residents, when he or she decides to let me know, to let the name be public, that we can help her and help him for that matter. The second question about the CLL money, I believe is also, the council allowance, I think it would be great if councillors, we expect the councillors' attendance 100%, but also to work for the residents that have been elected. But it's also important that, to mention that RBKC councillors, and in fact the London councillors, have not been given in terms of the allowances less than the minimum wage, I would say. So I would like to see members of the public to come and support their communities and help the councillors to fulfill their duties. But if we will come to the money, I don't think any one of us will do for the money this job. We do for the care of our community, and we will continue to do so. Many thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Before I call on the speakers, I'd like to apologize if I don't get your pronunciations correct. I would now like to invite Vedant Chalaram to ask a question. Ms. Chalaram, you have 5 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the Council and members of the public. Today, I stand before you to advocate for the cause close to the hearts of many, the accessibility of reasonably priced tennis courts for the public here in Kensington and Chelsea. Tennis is a sport that transcends age, gender, and socioeconomic backgrounds, promoting not only physical well-being, but also fostering a sense of community and healthy competition. Yet, for the reality is that not everyone has equal access to this wonderful sport, and the lack of affordable facilities is hindering the growth of tennis as an inclusive activity. London, a city known for its rich cultural diversity and love for sports, deserves tennis facilities that cater to all its residents, regardless of their financial status. At present, the limited availability of reasonably priced tennis courts makes it challenging for aspiring players like myself to pursue their passion and enjoy numerous benefits that tennis brings. Firstly, let us acknowledge the positive impacts that tennis has on physical and mental health. Regular tennis play enhances cardiovascular fitness, agility, and coordination. It is a sport that promotes a healthy lifestyle, and by ensuring that more affordable tennis courts are available, we are encouraging a more active and fit community. Moreover, tennis is a sport that fosters social connections and community engagement by providing friendships and build a sense of camaraderie. This not only contributes to the overall well-being of individuals, but also strengthens the social fabric of our communities. To achieve this goal, we need to invest in the construction and maintenance of more tennis courts that are affordable to the public. This may require collaboration between government bodies, private enterprises, and community organizations. By pooling resources and sharing the responsibility, we can create a network of tennis facilities that truly reflects the inclusive spirit of our city. So, in conclusion, my fellow advocates for tennis accessibility, let us unite in our mission to make the joy of tennis available for everyone in Kensington and Chelsea. By ensuring that reasonably priced tennis courts are accessible to the public, we are not just promoting a sport, we are fostering a healthier, more connected, and more vibrant community. Together, let us serve an ace for inclusivity and equity in the world of tennis. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Will.
Thank you for coming and for your excellent question and your excellent observations. And I completely agree with pretty much everything you've said about the importance of sport and tennis in particular. I think it's fair to say that we have a problem in that we only sadly have 16 courts in the borough, and they are very, very popular, as you no doubt are aware, not just for tennis, but for other sports as well. We do have to make them available for football, and I can assure you I have lots of people also telling me there's too much tennis and not enough football. So it is important that we strike a balance. I had understood your question was about safety, so I'm delighted that you don't think there's an issue about safety, but clearly your concern is about cost. Again, my understanding is that although there is a mixture of free time and when tennis coaches are on, you do charge. I think what perhaps I'll get back to you, we'll write to you with more detail, and please come and see us and talk to our officers about your suggestions about what we could do. In terms of finding new space for courts, we would love to do that, and I have lots of people saying they want paddle and not tennis. But it is a challenge because we don't have a lot of space in this borough, with the most densely populated borough in London, and also some of the most expensive land. But I think it's great that you're an advocate, and we can build on your enthusiasm and energy, and try and push forward both tennis and all the sports. I think other sports. But let me get back to you in more detail on the actual price issue you've raised, if that's okay. And thanks again.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you very much for coming this evening to ask that important question. Just for the record, let me remind everyone that about 23 years ago, I bought my first tennis racket, and I was never good at it, so I actually changed from tennis to swimming. And then I ended up taking part in competition in Serpentine at the Christmas day I can't remember, a long time ago now. So I definitely understand, and my first lessons were at Holland Park. And understand the importance of having it. Although I'm not good at it, I would like to see the next generation to be world class and win the Wimbledon. Having said that, I think we need to support the local community and support especially the youngsters who really want to spend that time rather than doing some other stuff, or we will talk about later, knife crime or anything else, to help them build the resistance they need to train. And I think the council should be providing the service as well as financial support for those families who are in need, especially the youngsters who do not want to go back to their mum and dad and ask for support. So I will definitely agree with you, and if anything, we will campaign together on this issue, and hopefully with the lead member said, I think that would be good. So the next Wimbledon champion could come from Kensington or Chelsea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chalaram. Thank you. I would now like to ask a question on behalf of Rai. Oh, they're here? Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Rai Chalaram will ask the question himself. You have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Madam Mayor and distinguished council members, I stand before you today with a vision that not only enriches our surroundings with the grace of pollinators, but also nurtures the well-being of our community. I believe the initiative can be seamlessly incorporated into the Royal Borough Environmental Project, enchanting its impacts and creating a harmonious blend of natural beauty and environmental responsibility. Our borough, a haven for diverse ecosystems, can play a pivotal role in preserving and enchanting biodiversity. Pollinators, including butterflies, are essential contributors to the health of our local flowers. My proposal seeks to make designated pollinator garden zones across the borough, increasing a native plant species that attract and sustain these crucial contributors to our ecosystem. Pollinators play a vital role in plant reproduction by transferring pollen from one flower to another, fostering the growth of fruits and seeds. My proposal emphasizes sustainable gardening practices, supporting not only pollinators, but also contributing to a healthier, more resilient local ecosystem. Engaging in sustainable activities has been linked to improved mental well-being by fostering a sense of accomplishment and connection with the environment. Nature has a profound impact on mental well-being, and my initiative seeks to create spaces where residents can find calm and peace and enjoy observing the diverse pollinators at work. I mentioned that Councillor Idris and Councillor North are keen on this project, and I value their support. Their dedication reflects a shared commitment to the well-being of our borough. Additionally, I understand that Councillor North is aiming to make Peel Street the first B superhighway in Camden Ward, a commendable effort that aligns perfectly with our broader goals of enhancing our local environment. In conclusion, the borough-wide Pollinator Garden Initiative is an invitation to transform our borough into a sanctuary of natural beauty, community engagement, environmental stewardship, and mental well-being. I urge each council member and resident to embrace this vision, as together we can create a legacy of thriving pollinators. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Will.
Well, once again, thank you for just a wonderful question and really flagging up something so important. I'm guessing you two are possibly related. And actually, I also want to say how wonderful it is to have young people like yourself just coming here and sharing your passion, and I hope we get more of that in 2024. I don't think I need to say much more, because I think you've said it so eloquently. I agree with absolutely every word you said. That is why, and I have to thank my colleague, Councillor Idris, for this, we did set up a B superhighway. That is why every time we do any planting in the borough, we try to think about those pollinators and how we can make it more friendly for those people. That's why we have 80 odd community gardens, because we understand the importance of mental health being outside, working the ground. That's why we also published a big strategy about all of this last year, which we're happy to share with you, and we're working on biodiversity net gain. As I say, it's just great to hear your passion, and thank you for coming.
Who would like to respond to that?
Madam Mayor, I'm responding to the question that was actually submitted, which is completely unrelated to the question which we just heard.
Yeah, we've noticed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now.
Are you able to provide any response to what?
I'm afraid not. No, this is completely out of left field for me. So I'm going to answer the question that was
right.
If that's all right.
So maybe, as the question that's already in the papers hasn't been asked, I think we'll just pass on it, if that's okay. Okay. Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chalaram. I would now like to welcome back a former councillor, Mairead Condon-Simmons, and invite her to ask her questions. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Council do something to address the increasing clutter on the pavements? For example, A-boards, e-bikes and e-scooters, which are affecting pedestrians. I am a carer in the community, and I am here to draw your attention to the unacceptable level of obstruction on our pavements, preventing members of the public from using them easily. They range from A-boards in abundance, some displaying as many as 3 outside one shop and as many as 14 along one road, Melbury Road to Melbury Court. E-scooters, rented e-bikes being left on the pavements in multitudes, especially those rented from Lime, Forest, Tier and River, causing obstruction to pedestrians. The above are the main nuisance and are left on the pavements, but there are others causing difficulties, such as broken paving slabs, utilities not flush with the pavements, builders' rubbish and scaffolding stored for months, tables and chairs placed on the pavement without licenses of trade in business, domestic waste put out on wrong days, Christmas trees left out for days, tree suckers overhanging pavements, reducing vision and slippery in the autumn from the falling leaves, overgrown front hedges and trees, flower stalls taking up too much pavement space for displays, crossovers with parked cars overhanging the pavements on slippery slopes. The list of obstacles is endless. These affect many of in the community, particularly in an ageing population, to using aids on the pavement. This is not exclusive to the elderly, but to those who are also in need of the following: wheelchair users, electric buggies, walking sticks, rollators, Zimmer frames, crutches, the blind, parents with buggies, children trying to get to school, postal deliveries using wheelies, road sweepers, and more that are too numerous to mention. I hope by highlighting the main nuisance that the Cabinet member and councillors will endeavour to make vast improvements to the level of obstruction on our pavements, preventing our residents and visitors from safely using the pavements. Finally, Madam Mayor, I would like to say thank you to both Tim Davis and Gary O'Hagan in high regards for the work that they do. Thank you.
Councillor Kamali.
Mairead, you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. There has been a huge proliferation of items that are on our pavements. We have some of the narrowest pavements in London, as you know well, and you highlight just the issue that these things raise for people that have limited mobility and need to use our pavements clear and unobstructed. There's a variety of things that we've put in place recently to try and address these. Most recently is our street enforcement team that have launched this month, or they'll be in their uniforms as of the beginning of next month. They have now been out on our streets throughout January, and they've issued nearly just under 150 fines in January alone, for including a variety of issues of things I didn't even know we could issue fines for, such as mixing mortar on the pavement, erecting scaffolding without a license, all sorts of things. They've been really tasked through Tim Davis, and I thank you for your comments about his work, to make sure that we do crack down on these things. They are also working with the planning department, so where A-boards are found that don't have permission, that they can actually take planning enforcement against that. And in fact, and I urge you to take a look just outside the town hall, you will see brand new pavement where we have recently been able to remove some defunct phone boxes on our high street, and we have a plan to try and remove as many more as we can, just to clear the pavements as best as possible. But of course, through pavement licensing and other licensing rules, we need to be that much tighter about what is permitted on our pavement, remembering that we're not there to stop business, but we are there to make sure that people can get around the borough safely and make sure they're not impeded. So thank you very much for raising this. Thanks.
Councillor New, please.
Thank you much, Madam Mayor. Former councillor, thank you for coming this evening to the full council and raising this important issue. I totally agree with you. I mean, this work needs to be done, but as the lead member mentioned it, there's a lot of work also going on at the moment, which can be improved. I just want to touch on a couple of issues you probably be aware as a former councillor is the localism bill gives the local community, including Castle and Chelsea, to take action and develop a positive outcomes for their neighborhood, which will be able to create a vision for how the area will look like in the future. I'm confident, as the lead member mentioned, our local informal agencies and environmental agencies will be able to take relevant actions as soon as possible. But I think we have to lobby the lead members and the council officers And I'm personally volunteering to be part of that lobbying our streets to be safe. I know there's a lot of issue in terms of e-bikes where normally the council designate one bay and they take 2.5 bays, sometimes broken pavements. So I think we need to all work together across the council and also our communities to tackle the issue you have raised. And thank you for coming in. Yeah.
Thank you. I would now like to invite to welcome another former councillor, Marian Alapini, and invite her to ask her question. Ms. Alapini, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and family who've come to support this question. Can we please work together to make our children feel safe in our community? The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea is ranked 15th out of 32 London boroughs for knife crime with injury offences per 1,000 population. The wards with the highest number of knife crime and injury offences are Colville with 31 offences, Nottingdale ward with 28 offences, and Goulburn ward with 27 offences. 86 of our beloved children and young people are suffering the daily trauma of their devastating attacks. We watch helplessly as precious children of our family and friends are triggered by reminders of the day their lives changed forever. A friend of mine was due to come today, but it was just too difficult for her, and so my prayers are with her tonight. Tragically, in 2022, there was a knife-related death at the Notting Hill Carnival. And sadly, on the 14th of March 2007, 16-year-old Koja Yenga, who attended St. Charles Catholic Sixth Form College, was killed on the boundary of Kensington and Chelsea and London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. Please welcome Koja Yenga's family, who are across there, and we've also got young people, families and friends who've come to support this important community safety issue and also to give their willingness to work with us to come up with holistic solutions for what we can do together as a council. I'm therefore asking, will the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea provide cross-party support to Idris Elba's Don't Stop Your Future campaign? This is calling for the banning of the sale of so-called zombie knives and machetes to reduce the number of young people who are dying. Importantly, we are also asking for increased funding for youth service provision. Idris Elba's Stop Your Future campaign was boosted last Wednesday, the 25th of January, by the Home Office announcement that fresh legislation will be introduced in Parliament in September to close the loophole and take these weapons off the streets. It will be illegal to possess, sell, manufacture, or transport zombie knives or machetes. In addition, if they're 8 inches long or have serrated edges or holes in the blade, those will be against the law. Idris Elba has welcomed the new ban and has said it's a symbolic step in the right direction, but says not enough has been done. So I've talked to local people and we've got a few suggestions. Our beloved children, victims of knife crime, their parents and families, and our community understand this heartbreaking issue and pray daily that their children return home safely. Like me, I know many of you are parents, and I can see from your faces you care deeply about this issue and you understand the devastating trauma in our communities. Will the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea therefore lead the way with a cross-party commitment tonight to meet outside of the full council, to give hope, to connect the dots by talking to traumatised victims of knife crime, their parents and their relatives, to get their perspectives and creative solutions, as they are the experts of what is happening, and they understand the support that's required to help rebuild the mental health, well-being and resilience. Can we also meet with concerned residents, schools, youth centres, grassroots organisations and the police to identify the measures of why young people are carrying weapons? Can we bring all these stakeholders together with RBKC cross-party councillors and officers to discuss joined-up solutions, a smart strategy, and look at a working programme with the children and family and community safety teams to save the precious lives of our children? In closing, I'd like to ask for you to support a surrender knife scheme across the whole of Kensington and Chelsea. We need to empower our communities by including them in the next steps to solving this important issue, with sustainable solutions for our communities, by our communities, to save the precious lives of our beloved children. Thank you very much.
Councillor Addenbrooke to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Marianne, thank you for raising this issue, and also thank you to Kojo's family for coming this evening. I appreciate it. Really can't have been easy for you, so thank you. As Marianne mentioned, Kojo attended school in the borough and was tragically a victim of knife crime in 2007 at the age of just 16, whilst out shopping in Hammersmith and Fulham. So this council welcomes Idris Elba's campaign, as we know that having a high-profile personality fronting campaigns really raises awareness and will have greater impact. I have spoken to the leader of the council, and we will write to the Home Secretary asking that the ban on the sale of zombie knives and machetes is brought forward, as September is just too late. And I think I can safely say that all of us in this chamber condemn the use of weapons, and every life lost is a waste and a tragedy, particularly a young life. And it's impossible for us to understand or comprehend the enormous impact this has on the victim's family and friends. And I've heard that phrase from a number of mothers: you become an expert in something you never wanted to be an expert in. Just terrible. As a former councillor, I'm sure you know that the council already invests a significant amount in youth services, more than any other central London borough. In 2022, we published our youth violence and exploitation strategy, focusing on 4 key areas: prevention, intervention, enforcement and support. We have also invested in a range of programmes and projects that aim to divert young people from crime, such as mentoring, sports, arts, education and employment opportunities. Our community safety team works with residents, voluntary and community organisations, faith organisations, police and statutory services to reduce the harm caused by violence, including knife crime. However, we must not be complacent, and there is always more we can do. So the community safety team would welcome the opportunity to discuss this work with the Kojo Trust, and I would be very happy to set up a meeting for you. And I think your idea of having a knife surrender is a really good one. They did it a few years ago, I remember, and I think that would be a really good idea. So we'll definitely talk to the police about that. Thank you.
Councillor, back to you.
Marianne, thank you for coming and bringing this important issue. And I would like to congratulate you on Idris Elba's campaign, which is highly appreciated. Our communities need this type of initiative to save lives. I think the problem is much bigger than to be stopped by and resolved by one campaign. We need to classify, we need to identify the problem. We classify knives by its size and color, whatever. They are weapons. It's called white weapons. So the legislation is tightening. This is one part of resolving the issue. And the other part is educating and preventing and taking care from the lower ground here. I have mentioned in this chamber many times that 1/4, it's fact, 1/4 of our children who live in the borough live in poverty, and poverty leaves children, parents cannot look after them. We need to fix this problem from its its roots. We are happy, this side of the chamber, we are happy to work with you. Any of us is happy to come volunteer with you, visiting, meeting, and thank you very much for coming and bringing this. And Councillor Ali is going to mention this in his speech later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alapini. And my condolences to the younger Kojis family and to other victims of the knife crime. Thank you for coming. I would now like to invite Elizabeth Ashley to ask a question. Ms. Ashley, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for allowing me to address you tonight. Feeding pigeons is not new nor exclusive to the Gloucester Road area. I realise it's an issue at other stations, especially South Kensington, and it is an issue in surrounding streets and lanes in our ward. However, the pigeon feeding at Gloucester Road is now a daily ritual for many feeders, which has created a very large flock of pigeons who leave unsightly, dirty, toxic droppings. The number of pigeons increases the more they are fed. They know when the bird feeders are due to arrive and recognise the faces of regular feeders who bring bags of torn up bread, bags of seed and grains, and even boiled rice, which they toss across the plaza area or pile up under the tree. This happens 2 or 3 times a day, and the more it happens, the larger the flock gets. All the leftovers are happily eaten by the mice and the rats that live in the area. It really is disgusting. The pigeon droppings that are left constantly build up. They are very smelly, and they are a known toxic health hazard. When they are dry, particles become airborne, causing respiratory problems in humans. When they're wet, they're very slippery and cause falls. I've spoken with wildlife experts who all tell me that the only way to get rid of the flock of pigeons is to stop the feeding. When the food stops, the pigeons will go. The various deterrents, like motorised hawks, etc., do not solve the problem. When any area is dirty or misused, it creates a comfortable space for bad behaviour. We have seen exactly that at Gloucester Road, to the extent that the Royal Mail closed our post box when their drivers refused to clear the box due to being harassed. Under current powers, police and wardens have not been able to stop the bird feeders, and I believe the only thing that they can do is issue small fines for littering. In a recent survey sent out by our councillors, residents were asked whether they would support a PSPO to stop the bird feeding. There was overwhelming support. I'm asking the lead member to commit to introducing a PSPO around Gloucester Road Tube Station. If not, around the whole borough, the whole ward, whatever it takes to stop the feeding. I would ask the lead member for the PSPO to be introduced at the earliest opportunity and for it to be appropriately and effectively enforced by council wardens. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kamali, please.
Elizabeth, thank you for your question and for highlighting this issue in Gloucester Road, but as you say, one that affects a number of high traffic areas. It perhaps won't surprise some colleagues to know that I've actually stopped one of the pigeon feeders myself outside of Gloucester Road, and they, well, wasn't quite expecting a round of applause for that, but when stopped and challenged, they immediately dispersed and went away. They also didn't particularly like having their picture taken. But what we need to do is make sure that we are enforcing and making sure that we are keeping our spaces clean. We have ambitious plans to make Gloucester Road one of our amazing spaces for Kensington and Chelsea, and there's not much point spending money on the surface if it's going to be ruined by pigeons above. So what we have done recently, we've increased the jet washing of Gloucester Road Tube Station to a monthly programme, and our new street enforcement team are visiting twice per day in the area. Of course, I'm sure there's times when they're not there, where this activity still happens. But they need to be there in order to enforce whether we have a PSP or not. So we need to make sure that our enforcers are visiting more frequently. And I'm going to be working with the lead member for communities and community safety to see about bringing a PSPO forward. I understand that Harrow Council has one, and we know that famously Trafalgar Square obviously has a bylaw as well. So we're going to look at what legislation works for this environmental health issue and whether a PSPO or some other form of policy or legislation is necessary. But absolutely, we want to keep our amazing spaces looking amazing. So thank you.
Councillor Lowry.
Firstly, just wanted to thank you for coming in. I could not agree with you more. As someone who uses Gloucester Road Station regularly and has lived around there for 28 years now, I firstly commend Councillor Kamali's direct confrontation of the offenders, but at the same time as commending his enthusiasm for confrontation, I think we need an even stronger commitment from the leadership team for a PSPO. A PSPO can be implemented in a public area where it is known that there is a detrimental effect on the quality of life of those in the locality, and it's likely to be persistent in nature. And I think the feeding of birds around Gloucester Road is persistent in nature and causes a massive detrimental effect on the health and well-being of local residents. What feeders of animals often don't know is that what they're feeding the animals also causes harm to the animals themselves sometimes. So that's another aspect to bear in mind. It's not only unhealthy for humans living around, it's unhealthy for the animals themselves, and it's a nuisance. So what I want to see, and what we as a group want to see, is a stronger commitment from the leadership team to implementing a PSPO, which will actually make it a criminal offence, and therefore an even stronger deterrent on those who attempt to feed animals. And I think the emphasis should be causing harm to animals. That's the way the Harrow and Brent Council, who've also implemented PSPOs, have phrased it. So I think that's something that we have to emphasise quite strongly.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ashley. I would now like to invite Sheila Lewis to ask a question. Ms. Lewis, you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. The reason why I'm concerned, I went to a property from allocations and the OT wasn't there, and my daughter had to carry me into the property and I couldn't go anywhere else. And I want to know, when is it all going to change so disabled people and vulnerable people know the place is suitable for them?
Thank you for your question. Councillor McQuay, to respond, please.
Thank you, Sheila, for coming in, and I'm very sorry to hear about your experience. That's absolutely unacceptable and shouldn't have happened, so I apologise for that, and I will definitely be following up on that after this meeting. And I know we've spoken before about your housing situation, and obviously it's private casework, so I don't want to kind of share that with everyone here, but please rest assured that I will be following up on that, and I have offered to meet and come and see you in your home, but I will definitely follow up on that, so I apologise about that.
Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question and for coming here to ask it. I'm really sorry that you've had to return to the council again to raise this issue, and I'm really sorry to hear about your experience. Since you've raised this previously, I have been looking into it, although I had to go quite a long way back to find the inclusive Kensington and Chelsea report with its foreword by Merrick Cockell. But this is still on the council website, so I'd like to draw the lead members' attention to it, and in particular its section on housing. As I've said before, there definitely, I think, needs to be a review of the council's housing policy for disabled people, how it's operating in practice, and how the council is complying with its landlord duties under the Disability Discrimination Act and the Equality Act, specifically in relation to its housing provision, as well as looking at improving support for disabled residents with regard to their housing, which I think was part of your question. I'd like to take this opportunity here and now to make a formal request to the lead member, in the interest of becoming a fairer borough, that this review be commenced urgently, and I'll be putting this request in writing after this meeting. With regard to Goodrich Court in particular, as I've said before, where there are rogue housing providers, where council enforcement is not leading to satisfactory improvements. I say again to the council that alternative solutions must be found to ensure that disabled residents can have safe and adequate homes. I know that discussions are ongoing between the council and the landlord, and I'll continue to keep updated on those. I would just like to say I would really like to arrange, if possible, before you leave tonight, a meeting to discuss all of this, as well as your specific housing situation. And thank you once again for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. I would now like to invite Kedesan Gallardo to ask a question. Ms. Gallardo, you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Kedesan, known as Kedi. I'm local resident. I live in Bromley Road in Goodrich Court, same building as Sheila. But my point is, we grow up. She's born here. I came as a child. I've lived in Golden Road until I was 18. When I was 18, I moved to Barleby Road. I don't need to repeat this. Then, when I had my first child, I moved to Bromley Road, which is Goodrich Court. I got 2 children now. I've been waiting for 11 years. My home is not suitable. It's unfit as well, on top of inaccessible. It's causing health problems to me and to my children. We are Grenfell affected too. We are in the Grenfell affected area. We didn't cause the fire. Yes, 6 years plus for me is 11 years fight. Yes, I never stop even I'm ill. I still fight. I wanted to see some change. Disabled people like me, like my neighbour, we shouldn't have to go through this. Well, we got category A in medical ground for rehousing. Last October, I was offered first floor flats. Do you really think I should go and view it? No. The reason why I have to raise, I shouldn't even have to, my application asks for ground floor. So, why is it being changed? So what I said is, I had to explain why I don't want to go to view, because there's so many issues. A lift is not a ground floor. Lift has got too many issues it can break down. There's fire safety as well. There's only access with lift. If there's fire in the building, I cannot use the lift. I got young children as well. I should be able to get out myself, evacuate. After what I see 6 years ago, I must not be offered any floor that is above ground floor. I have mentioned in November that when we were here, and I'm back again because I didn't see no action, then I got offered again. More floor, ground floor actually, with 2 floors. The bedroom is upstairs. And I'm thinking, well, no thank you. So I went back, but luckily they noticed because I spoke to the neighbours. I don't know, and then RBKC, I had the phone to ring RBKC to let them know. Don't waste your time, I'm not taking 2 floors because I refused the first floor for the reason. And I have to say it time to time. That affects my own well-being. Do you know how important it is that someone to have healthy home and comfortable? Then I can talk about something else, compassion. But at the moment, I don't even have a home that is safe for me and my children. So I would like to see this council, if they really want to be the best council, they need to work with me and with my neighbours, no organisation who hasn't got our disability. Remember that night, 6 years ago, what happened? So people like us died as well as other people. And we must bring that change. Forget about investment, forget about affordable home. I mean, you can work on that as well, but make sure that you meet these people's needs. we are entitled to. We don't just come up to this country, especially my household. We pay everything. If you see me disabled, I don't claim no benefit, but I do claim standard disability living allowance. But why is this council taking them so long? And the new buildings are all 2-bedroom, I need 3-bedroom, and they're all upstairs. So can you remember this? Why is it taking 11 years if I'm on category A in a medical for ground floor? And I do not want someone to come to me, well, we don't have it at ground floor. If you take it, you take it. If you don't want it, then you're going to wait another 20 years. I lost my voice because I've been ill. I'm antibiotic, but for how long am I going to be on antibiotic? Same to my children too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galajo. Councillor McQuaid, please.
Thank you, Kirdy, and I'm sorry this is so distressing, and many apologies for that. Again, I'm aware of talking about specific cases in the chamber like this, but seeing you have brought it up, I feel I would like to reply to some of what you've said, if that's all right. And officers, the reason the officers offered you those properties, I discussed that with them, particularly one of them, because it was brand new. They were fully aware that you wanted ground floor, and you're already in a current ground floor 2-bed, not a council house, provided by a registered provider, and you need a 3-bed, and we do not have any 3-bed ground floor available. So I know, Kirdy, it is in our plans to build one.
Kirdy, would you please let the council...
It's in our plans to build one. Unfortunately, there's a limited amount of ground, but we are building. So that's why the officer wanted to show you one in our brand new property on the first floor in the local area. So we were trying to tick as many boxes as possible, fully accept it was not ground floor. It has 2 lifts and it was first floor. And so I'm sorry if that was distressing, but he just wanted to show you something after you came in November. And your circumstances have obviously changed because you are in a 2-bed, which has been okay for your needs, but no longer, and I accept that, completely accept that. So we are building social homes in our new home programme, one of the few councils to be building council homes. And sadly, as I said, 3-bedroom flats, ground floor 3-bedroom flats are incredibly hard to come by, and all our current ground floor ones are occupied. So we're working with residents to try to encourage them to move if they don't need a ground floor flat anymore. And then if it's not wheelchair accessible, we will adapt that. We've made a commitment to you, our officers, the housing officers have made a commitment to you personally to adapt it. And in terms of the allocation scheme, I just want to touch on something that Councillor Simmons was saying, that we do actually now have...
Councillor McQuaid.
Okay, well, we do have significant priority for our disability access, and they get 900 points in our current policy. So we are very, very mindful of this, and we are working hard. And again, my offer remains, Kirdy, I will come to your home and meet with you, and we are working again. Finally, the registered provider and our housing officers are meeting again next week to see what pressures we can bring to bear on the registered provider for some of the other issues in the home. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirdy, for coming again to speak about this. And I am very sorry that you have had to come back again, and that you keep having to come back and come back and come back. I hope the whole council, I think, owe you an apology for what you have experienced over so many years. I think it's completely unacceptable. As you know, I can't discuss an individual case here, but I'm aware of the complex and long-standing issues around this, and I'll be very happy to meet with you and discuss the progress and how I can assist. And again, I'd like to do that before you leave tonight, if that's possible. Councillor McVeigh has mentioned the new homes programme, where the council is committed to building 600 new homes, of which 300 are to be socially rented. Today, I visited some of those sites, and I was surprised a little bit to see that where there is wheelchair accessible properties on one site, those are on the first floor. And I just do wonder whether the council have fully appreciated the impact of Grenfell on the suitability of housing any wheelchair user above the ground floor. There are future sites to come to be brought forward, and I would really like to see, it's all very well having a new homes programme, and it's all very well saying we don't currently have a 3-bedroom ground floor property, but we do have a new homes programme. If the new homes programme is not going to include some 3-bedroom ground floors, then I think there's a little bit of a circular argument there, and I think there's a bit of a problem. I'll come and speak to you afterwards if that's all right, and thank you again for coming. I really do hope, after 11 years, I really do hope we can actually make some steps towards finding a solution here. Thank you.
Thank you, Curly. Oh, Councillor Lowry, would you like to speak?
Yes, sorry, Madam Mayor. I've got a point of order relating to subsection 8, paragraph 3, subparagraph 3 of the standing orders. We've had at least 3 meetings with the whips and senior members of the groups about ensuring the seamlessness and safety of this meeting. My point is that no matter what the professional or personal relationships of any leadership team or councillor has with any public speaker, and it's great to see a diverse range of public speakers from north to south of the borough, I don't think it's acceptable for the Labour group to not be told what the topic is of certain people who are going to come and speak. I find it completely unacceptable. I do understand that leadership team members do have access to resources to prepare and may know people professionally, but I think it's inequitable if we're not allowed to know who's actually coming to speak and with the topic of their speech.
Yeah,
so what I would suggest is, Madam Mayor, could you very kindly read out the question that was omitted, which we have prepared for, to give our councillors an opportunity to respond to the questions they prepared for.
If this might help clear this matter up, I was expecting the same question that Councillor Benton was expected. I walked into the chamber, and actually it just so happened that Councillor North said to me, I think that's going to change. So I knew no more than you did. He didn't know, he just met the young gentleman on the way in who told him. So it was all last minute for us, but I thought a young person has come to speak about something he feels passionately. It's important we acknowledge that. And I'm, so there's no conspiracy here. We didn't know either. And I think the important thing is to recognise our residents coming to speak, not actually whether they're asking the questions we want to answer.
I agree, but no. The standing orders state we are entitled to know the topic of what we are. Yes. But
can we please?
The content of the speech that was given clearly indicated that there was information which Councillor North knew and was aware of. And that's great that he's come in, but at least we should have a right to know.
That's okay.
Councillor Lowry, if there is, and to everyone, and Councillor Benton, if there's any consolation, I too was absolutely surprised. And I consulted my colleagues, and again, I second Councillor Will's sentiment. He was a young chap, and I thought I didn't want to stop him in his tracks. So my apologies.
So should we be allowed to do that as a Labour group as well? We can, for example, ask people we know. No, we should have a right to respond to questions which are on the list. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
Let's be clear, Councillor. These 2 gentlemen, I believe, are both of our youth council. Okay. I knew as much as you did. I thought one was coming to talk about safety. I said that on tennis courts. I didn't know the answer to that question. But my view is, if young people like them, we don't have enough of them come forward, we should be courteous and reply. There was nothing political about the questions.
Councillor Will.
I don't really know why you're making such a fuss about that.
Councillor Will. Okay. Councillor Lowry, please. I promise you, as I said, nobody was aware of it. And I do feel strongly, it's a young chap, it's quite daunting to speak in the chamber. And I consulted with the chief exec, and we said, should we allow it? And we agreed we would allow it. And that's why, if you remember, I said, who would like to respond to this question? Because I knew you wouldn't be prepared for it. Nobody was prepared for it.
My only final point is I wish Councillor North or any other councillor who has any professional relationship should at least have the courtesy to tell us. I wish you'd just done something so simple.
Okay.
And I think it's great that young people come and speak.
Okay, Councillor Lowry, maybe please move on. Can you please move on? Okay, so thank you. And if you want, it's the same question, what's on the papers. Okay, thank you. Do members have any petitions to present? No, okay. Item 7, statement by the leader and response by the leader of the minority party. Councillor Thalasitis, you have a request under standing orders.
Madam Mayor, in accordance with Standing Order 42, I wish to move that Standing Order 30 be suspended this evening to allow the Leader of the Council and the Leader of the Principal Opposition Group up to 10 minutes each for their speeches.
Is that seconded? Thank you. This is agreed. I now invite the Leader of the Council to address the meeting for up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, it's been 6.5 years since the fire at Grenfell ripped through people's homes and ripped families and lives apart. 72 wonderful people lost their lives, 18 children, including one yet to be born baby boy. And the families and friends of the 72 still don't have justice, still don't have answers. They don't yet have an inquiry report to establish in basic terms what went wrong and what the country should do about it. Last week, along with Kim, Maxine and other senior colleagues from the Council, I attended every single day of Grenfell Testimony Week. Many of you will have seen the reports from writers and broadcasters, but it is impossible for anybody to truly relay the emotion, the anger, the sadness, the searing truth, so eloquently spoken by bereaved families and survivors. I sat and I listened. I felt ashamed. It was a reminder that this organisation is to blame for what happened, and we should continue to shoulder that blame every single day. And no matter what you think about companies gaming the system, a broken building safety regime, or the response of the emergency services that night, none of that should matter to us. We are a public authority. We should have a bar set high for us, and we should be meeting the very highest bar. Madam Mayor, Testimony Week sits alongside our efforts to compensate families and victims and to put in place a long-lasting fund for those in the local community. However, 6 years on, it's clear that we're still not doing enough, and people have a right to be angry. I sat alongside anonymous lawyers and representatives throughout last week. One company failed to send anyone at all. After fronting public meetings in the days after the fire and the opening of the inquiry, I know what happened. I've sat face to face with families, and I have some understanding of how people feel. I'm glad that others in that room do now so too. The one thing I want to make clear tonight, to them and to ourselves once again, it's not enough just to turn up. It's not enough just to listen. You have to take action. For us, it's not enough if we don't complete a fundamental change of culture across the entire organisation. For me, and I know for Maxine, who joined us last year, it's not enough, as I said, just to turn up. It's what we take from Testimony Week and what we do with it that counts. I stood here in 2017 and I pledged that we would not forget. I haven't, but people are. As companies are bought by others or dissolved, as ministers and governments change, and as people utter the words, I cannot recall, time and time again. I've always wanted this council to be a positive constant, somewhere for bereaved and survivors to look to when they feel nobody is listening and nothing is changing. But last week I asked myself, have we done enough? The answer is no, but we must continue to try and try harder. If admission of failure feels uncomfortable, that is fine with me. I am speaking from the heart. Unless we can collectively look at ourselves in the mirror and honestly say what bereaved and survivors have challenged us to be, then we have failed. Madam Mayor, I'm only human, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that last week was incredibly difficult, and I'm sure colleagues who were there feel the same. It should feel difficult for us. It must take such courage to speak in those circumstances, to turn to representatives of organisations you know had a hand in the death of your loved ones, and then tell them why Grenfell was so wrong. It should not have happened. The tragedy should never have happened. It's also clear that more change should have happened by now. For so many families, the clock has just stopped. Time is standing still. So the inquiry must work faster. It must pull out all the stops. In turn, the police will be thorough, and of course they must look at all their options and evidence. But justice for Grenfell should have been swift, and to date it has not been. This is an additional kick in the teeth on top of the tragedy itself. Just as the Hillsborough's families had to wait, just as the post office workers had to wait, just like those who will now have to wait for conclusions from the COVID inquiry, the system doesn't work. It's too stacked in favour of those who would like to forget. And the anger at the lack of action was palpable throughout last week. Palpable and perfectly understandable. Sure, it's uncomfortable when the finger is painted in our direction with such raw emotion, but every single person delivered their message with dignity. I'm not sure how families managed to do it. I'm not sure I could if faced with the same situation. It demands respect and it demands attention. Madam Mayor, I'm not going to stand here tonight and give a long list of the changes we've made as a council. It doesn't take away the pain, the hurt. It doesn't bring families back together or loved ones back to life. And frankly, too often, it's what politicians tend to do. The evidence at the inquiry already chimes with what we heard last week. The council did not do enough before 2017. It didn't care enough. It wasn't inquisitive enough. We outsourced services, we outsourced caring, and we didn't listen to people who knew something was wrong. Of course, I feel strongly that significant progress has been made, and we are a different organisation now to the one before the 14th of June 2017. Our commitments, promises and policies have been guided by what happened on that date. The continued investment and care we take in our social housing, listening to people who live here, being the first public sector organisation to be guided by the Hillsborough Charter through an inquiry process, and building social homes for the first time in a generation. We are continually striving to become a leader in safety after bringing our housing services back in-house, closer to us, never again, at arm's length. And the dedicated service, a unique set of people in the council who we will hope will show others the way. But Madam Mayor, I'm more aware than ever that a lot of what we label as progress is too focused on process, paperwork, systems, contracts, commitments, and money spent. We still haven't done enough on the ground, face to face where it matters. People don't need to be told about the changes. They need to see and feel the changes. So Grenfell, the opening to the inquiry last week, these are moments that have changed my life. For as long as I am leader of this authority, we will never forgive ourselves, nor seek forgiveness, never pat ourselves on the back for what we do now, never think the job is done. There is not a time now, nor in the future, to simply move on. Last week was a reminder of that for all of us here and our entire workforce, a message I will make sure gets through. Grenfell has already shaped the future path of this organisation, but it is up to us to choose how we wish to walk down that path. Madam Mayor, colleagues, thank you for listening tonight. As you can tell, I'm still incredibly moved by the events of last week, and I wanted to share these emotions and words with you. I feel it's one of the most important roles I have as leader. But I will end with words of someone else tonight. Sandra Ruiz, whose niece, Jessica Urbano Ramirez, died in the fire, aged 12. Leaders, she said, should be held to a higher level of accountability. That means us, that means me. Last week, the depth of grief, the hurt and the sorrow, the fury and the frustration, the raw pain and the searing testimonies, especially about children, are all things I will never forget. And I will use it to drive me on, and we will use it to drive all of us on. Thank you.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as we were coming to the council, we have seen the demonstration outside. Sadly, that's a continuation of the war between Israel and Hamas, which innocent lives have been lost and continue to be lost as we speak. And I hope and pray that permanent ceasefire will be reached and two-state solution will be formed so that the Middle East will be peaceful. And that's just reflected on what we have seen outside of the council as we were coming in. Madam Mayor, last week was Grenfell Testimony Week. The Testimony Week was designed as a platform for those who have been impacted by the disaster 2017 and who wish to speak about the impact that the disaster had on them and their loved ones. 6 years on, Madam Mayor, the Grenfell anniversary has passed, and now the 7th year is just 5 months away, and yet no one has taken the accountability of the loss of 72 victims of our communities who lost their lives. The Labour Group of Councils will continue to demand justice for Grenfell. I personally will never forget, I understand the leader of the council mentioned that she's been there, but I personally will never forget what I have witnessed on that night. It's that fateful night at the disaster where I remember, and it will be remembered as a man-made disaster. And shockingly, those who have been responsible for that are still free and living in a normal life, whereas the lives of our families and local communities that have been impacted by the disaster has changed forever. The local community will not rest, and will continue to struggle until those responsible for the disaster are brought to justice sooner than later. I was informed that the Testimony Week event was formed part of the settlement scheme agreed in 2023, which was a result of civil claims brought by a group of bereaved survivors and residents affected by the Grenfell fire disaster against a group of defendants, including the local council organizations, private companies, the central government departments, and the London Fire Brigade. However, it's worth mentioning or remembering that the link between the former Grenfell Tower residents and the defendants is the council. That's the link. The link will have to be associated and to be made it clear that the local former Grenfell Tower residents and the private companies would never have met if not the council was involved, who was in charge of the tower that caused this disaster. The local communities want to know who is responsible for the disaster and how long it will take to get justice done for the families. Although the Testimony Week was framed as a wider civil claim settlement, which can be seen independently from the ongoing Grenfell Tower inquiry, many residents feel that this is part of delaying tactic for justice to be done for the families who have been suffering ever since. What about the Grenfell Tower inquiry, delayed several times since last year? How long will this be delayed? We know the Testimony Week has impacted the Grenfell inquiry, and what about the decisions that will be taken by the Grand Prosecution Service? Will it have impact on this? And what will happen if the report is delayed yet again? And I'm assuming that it will be delayed again to the next general election, because we have already been seeing delays of this Grenfell inquiry report, final report. Madam Mayor, this council claims that the council has changed and is now a fairer council that listens to its residents. Well, I and many others believe that the council has not changed. If anything, it has gone backwards since the Grenfell disaster. I would, however, agree that at one point the council has changed, which is the word change on a paper that has been overused so many times. Rather than change and repeat it on a paper, the local community is demanding justice for what has happened. Another good example, Madam Mayor, that the council has not changed is that the Conservative councillors were invited or attended the testimony, whereas the local councillors, where the Grenfell Tower disaster took place, were not invited or informed about it, or at least been asked to inform. And when they inquired about it, they have not been given the permission or the acceptance. So I would like to know, was the promise that have been given at Farah Barra, was it just another word, promise on a paper, rather than action? We can always say words, but the good deeds need to be on the record. Grenfell Tower disaster has impacted a large number of our communities in North Kensington and beyond. My colleagues and local communities have lost their loved ones, and no amount of money, Madam Mayor, no amount of money, I have to emphasize that point, no amount of money will be replacement for the losses they have suffered. And therefore, justice for the local community will have to be served and hold those accountable to charge for what they have done. Madam Mayor, the safety and community, on another topic now, the safety and community of our residents is top priority for the Labour councillors in Kensington and Chelsea. And I'm pleased to support our world-famous British African heritage actor Idris Elba, who is now leading Knives Down campaign, and to make sure the lives will be saved, as we have heard earlier. RBKC sadly is, as we have heard before, sadly ranked the 15th out of the 32 London boroughs of night crimes. And the wards, sadly, that has been impacted are the northern wards. To mention few, Colville, Nottingdale, and Goulburn. I urge the council leadership to prioritise the safety and security of our residents and join us to support Idris Elba's Do Not Stop Your Future campaign, so that we can give our youngsters and youth opportunity they deserve. As the leader of Kensington and Chelsea Labour Group of Councillors, I would like to say to Idris Elba a word that he understands, which is Mahat Senit. I'm sure he understands that well, and I will thank him once again for what he does. We, the Labour Group of Councillors, will be supporting Idris's campaign to deal with the root cause of the knife crime, since the Conservative government have failed for many years to do so. I hope that the next Labour government will deal with this issue and provide a world-class youth centres and services, good education system, and fix the economic crisis that hit everyone across the country. Once again, I'd like to thank Mariana Albina, the former councillor who attended this evening and gave a speech. And together, we can show our youth, and we will show our youth, that there is a path to prosperous future, rather than and making sure that they will stop. They do not stop. That will not stop their future, and through a knife crime. Madam Mayor, in conclusion, we are here for responsibility, and we have to support each and every one of our community members, including the youth, and no more lives should be lost through knife crime. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. In accordance with standing orders, I rule that the order of the business shall as printed in the agenda. Item 9. I now invite Councillor Campbell to propose the reception of the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report 23-24 report, which is on pages 81 to 82 of the supplementary papers pack and pages 25 to 33 of the main agenda pack, and the reception of the urgent key decisions, which is on pages 35 to 37 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Taylor-Smith to second. Councillor Campbell to propose.
I'd like to propose a report, Madam Mayor.
And I'm happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Do any members wish to speak? The recommendations are now on page 81 of the additional papers pack. Is the Treasury Management Strategy Mid-Year Report agreed and the urgent key decision noted? The recommendations are agreed. Item 10, I now invite Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith to propose the reception of the report from the Administration Committee, pages 39 to 69 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Thalasitis to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to present the report.
Councillor.
And I'm happy to second.
A copy of the draft consultation has been made available in the members' room and online, and I will now invite Councillor Taylor-Smith to speak to the report. Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't proposing to speak. The report can stand. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Does the Council agree with the recommendation set out in paragraph 2.1 on pages 40 of the main agenda pack to amend the re-adopt the Constitution and to adopt the annual pay policy statement? All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The recommendations are approved. Item 10. I now invite Councillor Lucy Knight to propose the reception of the report from the Inner West London Mental Health Services Reconfiguration Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, pages 71 to 74 of the agenda pack, and Councillor Dr. Mona Ahmed to second. Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to provide the Council with an update on the public consultation on the future of acute mental health services in RBKC and Westminster, following the closure of the Gordon's 51 acute mental health beds. The JOS committee that was set up between Westminster and RBKC councillors to examine the ongoing...
Councillor Knight, could you please speak in the mic?
Yeah, sure. To examine the ongoing NHS consultation has met 3 times so far with senior NHS leaders, and we have a further 2 meetings confirmed for February following their recent agreement to extend the consultation to February 16th. The NHS has made it clear throughout these meetings and its consultation documents that its preferred option is to move the Mental Health Crisis Assessment Service, also known as the MCAS, out of St Charles and North Kent to the Gordon Hospital site, to increase its capacity to include an additional 4 beds, bringing the total to 12. A decision that will come at the cost of 51 acute mental health beds and the removal of the MCAS service from our residents in North Kent. This process has not been an easy one, and at times over the past few months, I have questioned what difference we can make to this consultation when the decision has always felt predetermined, as no matter how much we challenge the lack of data evidence for this significant change in our services, their failure to produce any proposed options that the community, voluntary sector or we can wholeheartedly support, or the lack of true engagement that has been done, nothing seems to make a difference. I want to make clear that I agree with the NHS that we should be investing more in community and preventative mental health services. I hope that with such investment in the years to come, we will see the effects and success of this model of care and be able to rely on it more heavily, as inpatient admissions should always be a last resort. But we are not there yet, and that is why it is paramount we have sufficient access to both acute inpatient and community services in our borough to ensure our residents have the best possible access to care, whatever their needs. And with the amount of investment that's been put into community mental health services in this borough over the last few years, which is more than most across the UK, particularly with the recent savings from the Gordon's closure that have been redistributed into community care, we should have some of the best services in the country. But we are not seeing the results of this reflected in the data, nor is there a strong data evidence to support their key arguments for closing the beds. So when C&W claim better outcomes from their proposed option, I hope you can understand why we have questions and do not feel assured that this option will meet the needs we are currently facing. At last week's meeting, a number of voluntary sector partners and community leaders who should have been at the heart of this process in consultation, co-producing the future of this service, came and voiced their experience and views on this consultation. I'm just going to flag a few of the points raised by Amelia Mustafa, who runs SMART, a mental health charity in RBKC, and was involved in the co-production of the MCAS service a few years ago. The business case is at best woolly and at times disingenuous. The key arguments for losing the beds are not backed up with data. I think there's an over-reliance on inpatient care, but you don't solve the problem by taking away the beds. It's a culture that's led to that, and that culture comes from a leadership. There has been no consultation, no co-production, and no working with people on the ground who are supporting those who are critically unwell. There are very few voices recorded in this consultation, and I'm finding it really hard to see numbers. CNWL claim better outcomes from residents now that money has been used from the temporary closure of the Gordon to be put into community care, but I can't see where. In my experience, no one can get a bed. There are people walking around who are really, really sick, and they're coming to my charity. We are seeing people who are falling through these massive gaps and becoming very unwell. I want proper data. I don't want to be treated like this, and I want CNWL to treat their patients with clarity of esteem because they are their key partners, and that is not happening. In this meeting, the Grenfell community also expressed their disappointment at CNWL for how the consultation had been run, as it did not follow the commitment that had been made to them in 2017, that the community would be involved in the processes and co-production. And this seemed to be a consultation that had been done in the community rather than with it. It should not have taken this meeting or us inviting these individuals to speak for senior NHS leaders to finally listen. But as a result, they did agree that they would reflect and revisit how they have been running this consultation. What comes of these remarks, I do not know, and we are waiting to hear from them on next steps. But I hope from this process, lessons are learned in how public consultations should be led, particularly when they concern decisions affecting our most vulnerable groups in society. My optimism in where we will get with this changes every day, but I'm holding on to hope that meetings like last week's will make the NHS and CNWL think long and hard about what the future of these services and the impact of such changes will have on our community. I also want to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues in both Westminster and here, as well as our supporting officers who have worked around the clock alongside us to help us get to the stage that we now are. I'm just about to finish. Mona, your contributions as a psychiatrist have been invaluable to this committee, and I know that has been felt all around. And Anne's ability to rally the crucial voluntary sector and committee leaders to our last meeting was so important, as their voices needed to be heard by NHS leaders. This process really has been an example of how effective cross-party working can be, both in RBKC and with Westminster colleagues. Mental health is not a matter that it should ever be politicised and used as a means to benefit winning over votes for upcoming elections. And this is something I feel so strongly about.
Sorry, you really do need to bring it close, please. Thank you. Councillors. Councillor Menahmed.
Thank you. Lucy said it all, really. Thank you for the overview that you've provided, including an overview of the challenges that we've been facing in recent weeks. It's been a pleasure to work with you and Anne, genuinely. You spoke about the inadequacies of the consultation process, including the fact it has been biased and steering respondents to specific outcomes. And there are a few points with regards to the strategic context that I think it's worth mentioning. So we already know that the demand for mental health services, including acute beds, is rising. The pre-consultation business case notes that waiting times for admission are too long, they remain too long, and that there is clear pressure on the system, resulting in rising waiting times, with waits for a psychiatric inpatient bed now the main driver for breaching the 12-hour wait in A&E. So we know we need these beds. Looking at the length of time from decision to admit to a bed being identified, the patient group currently that's waiting the longest periods are patients from North Kensington who are waiting not in A&E but whilst in the community. And we heard directly from the voluntary care sector, such as the North Kensington Community Kitchen, for instance, about how unmanageable and potentially dangerous this is becoming. I wanted to mention as well just a few points from the Equality Impact Assessment. Firstly, the fact that black and mixed ethnicity service users, as well as young adults, have been seriously impacted by these changes. The rates of presentation to A&E departments for young adults and black and mixed ethnicity service users have risen significantly since the closure of the beds, with a 32% increase in A&E presentations for young adults since the beds were closed. A&E is the final safety net for service users in crisis, and this particularly steep increase in the need to access emergency care happening alongside the beds being withdrawn suggests that community-based care is not meeting people's needs in a timely way. Another group which is close to my heart personally, as they're the service users that I work most closely with, that are most impacted by these closures, are those diagnosed with severe and chronic mental illnesses such as schizophrenia and other disorders of enduring psychosis, given that this is the population that's most likely to need acute and repeated admissions. In fact, the consultation with CNWL's own senior clinicians revealed that consultants reported that severely, in quote, severely mentally ill patients have lost out already due to these changes, due, for instance, to reductions in hospital length of stay. As a councillor serving Notting Dale, it's important to highlight also a point made in the business case, which is that geographically, the patterns of admission align closely with areas of deprivation, reflecting the known relationship between social deprivation and mental well-being, with the most vulnerable areas being in North Kensington as well as Pimlico South in the case for Westminster, both of which have seen an increase in referrals and caseloads. So, it's important to note as well that CNWL leadership, they don't dispute that the demand for acute mental health care is rising and that this will continue to rise. They agree that patients face unacceptable waits for a bed, and they agree that bed occupancy rates are dangerously high. None of this is in dispute. Rather, the reason the beds at the Gordon are staying closed is because there is simply a limited financial envelope, meaning that having both community and inpatient services is not affordable. This is what we've been told. We're told if we want to reopen the beds, the way to do that is to divert money away from existing community services, which is not acceptable. If we want to keep the current community provisions, such as the excellent MCAS, for instance, then there will be no money to reopen the beds. It's either inpatient beds or community. This whole premise of being made to choose between having either inpatient care or community services because of financial constraints, that whole premise needs to be rejected. We need both inpatient and community services. They serve different people at different stages of their illness journey, and we can't afford to lose either.
Councillor Ahmed, I'm sorry to interrupt your flow. You speak very elegantly. Unfortunately, the clock's not working, so I would be very grateful if you could bring it to close very soon.
Two more lines.
Please,
two more lines. So, as Councillor Knight said, the consultation process is being revisited and it must be improved, and we can guess what it will reveal. But there is a clear danger here that community services can be lost to pay for the beds. As the Chief Executive of CNWL herself stated, in quotes, "The problem is austerity. Austerity has meant cuts in mental health spending, which has meant that between 2010 and 2020, 25% of all mental health beds in England had been closed. So this isn't unique to us. So yes, we need to defend these 51 beds, but it's also disingenuous to refuse to challenge this wider context of the attack on mental health spending and have the more difficult conversations around lobbying for much needed additional funding so that we can have mental health services that actually meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Does Councillor Knight wish to sum up? Oh, sorry.
Can I just make it brief, Madam
Please
Mayor?
I'll
just make it brief. I think there's something that I need to reiterate, how important this consultation is for the shaping of our mental health services. And in order for us to be clear and successful about this whole consultation, it has to be culturally appropriate. The consultation should be easily accessible. Youth service should be involved at every stage because the youths are highly effective with mental health. Families and care networks should help to shape services and decision making. The paper should be accessible in the library in paper form as well as electronically. We should be on the radio station promoting this for local residents to take part in this consultation. And most importantly, services provider needs to engage with all communities on their levels. There needs to be an outreach program making sure that the voluntary and the community sector is engaged because they have a wide reach and, of course, build trust with communities because, as we know, one of the biggest barriers to community engagement is lack of trust. So I think this is very important for us to liaise with all stakeholders and for them to put it out on their platform so that we get the best result from this consultation because it's very difficult to reach mentally ill health residents. And this is something that we need to work on in order for us to capture the real need for such service.
Thank you, Councillor Thaxter. Councillor Simmons, would you like to say something?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a couple of points for anyone who may or may not be aware. In 2017, CNWL told the Grenfell community repeatedly, "We are here for you, now and in the future." In 2018, CNWL conducted a consultation about removing CAMS from North Kensington and adult psychotherapy, and they did this consultation after they had put the building on the market already. That's not what I would call a consultation. So I really would like to applaud Lucy and Mona and Anne and everybody who's been working on this for the benefit of residents. This really is a huge, huge issue. And finally, I'd just like to mention, in case anyone else was not aware, the CEO of CNWL is actually the national NHS lead for mental health. And it really does, frankly, beg a belief that we should find ourselves in this situation. So thank you to those who've been working on this so hard, and applaud you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Anybody else? Councillor Randall.
Just last word from me, Madam Mayor, and I'd just like to thank, obviously, Lucy, Mona and members of the committee. Obviously, it's not for me as the lead member to get involved in the work of the JSOC or be involved in the work of the JSOC, but I just want to thank the committee for inviting me and my colleague, Councillor Balathalasis, who came 2 meetings ago to give evidence to the committee about our particular positions as a council on this particular situation. It's really important. I think what Councillor Thaxter has said, what Councillor Simmons says, is absolutely correct. There have been examples of consultations being held that being changed at the last minute, so people don't know where the consultation is. And the committee, the JSOC, has done a really great job in holding the NHS to account. But I'd just like to personally thank the committee for all the work they're doing. They are the legal authority to look at this in order to refer it to the Secretary of State as well. But I think this is an extremely important issue that I think all members of the Chamber now have finally understood. After many, many debates on this floor. But I do speak with SDNWL every week and do raise the concerns I can from my position on this as well. But again, I just want to thank Mona and Lucy and Anne and the rest of the colleagues on the committee, because it's doing a fantastic job, and I just hope we get the best result for our residents. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Wheel, please. We can't hear you.
Yes. So I wasn't planning to speak. I should declare an interest. I'm employed by the NHS, which isn't going to hold me back from what I'm about to say. I just think the two really things that stand out for me in this are the consultation and the data. We all know on this council that it's very hard to get consultation right, but you sort of get the feeling that they haven't tried very hard here, and that they ought to be holding themselves to a higher standard and be thinking before they start a consultation about whether they've got it right, and perhaps asking around for some advice on it. And I think it's inexcusable that not enough data is deployed and given to people when making really important decisions like this. And maybe the ICB ought to be, or this ought to be an item for consideration by the ICB about how they do this in future and what level of data we as the public and users of the NHS can expect in future. And just want to add finally, and I'm not sure it's really my place to say this, but I feel incredibly proud as chairman of the OSC of the scrutiny deployed, not by me, but by my colleagues in scrutiny from all sides of this chamber. I think they've done an absolutely brilliant job of holding to account, and I think the lead members have rallied in support of all of that. So for once, I can, well, not for once, but I am incredibly proud of what they've done, and I think we all should be in this chamber.
Yeah. Councillor Lowry.
Just briefly wanted to echo the sentiment of my colleagues in thanking the excellent work of Councillors Knight, Ahmed and all those who were involved in this process. It's not really the first time that we have a shoddy, inadequate consultation service from the NHS and its bodies, because those of us who were around when we had all the meetings around the Brompton Hospital services will remember how inadequate it was back then as well. We brought it to scrutiny, and even that couldn't really improve the attitude of senior NHS staff. But I just wanted to draw members' attention to, and many of you will be aware that Hammersmith and Fulham has had a very long and established Save Our NHS campaign, and as of last year we have a Kensington and Chelsea Save Our NHS campaign. It's meant to be cross-party, and there was an inaugural meeting held at the Unitarian Church in autumn, and I would encourage members from the majority group to also get involved. This won't be the last battle we have. Ever since the Naylor report came out with sale of hospitals, this is going to be a big issue going forward. So we're ready for battle, and if you could, perhaps members with expertise like Councillor Knight could join, it would be very, very helpful.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would Councillor Knight like to sum up?
I was just going to thank everyone for their further comments and contributions to this. And my last section of this speech that I didn't get to was to say just after stating that I don't think mental health should ever be politicised, and I feel incredibly strongly about that, it is our duty as elected representatives to ensure our residents' voices are heard loud and clear. And I would urge you to get as many of your residents involved at either submitting one of the consultation applications or to some of the meetings that will be coming up in the next month after the extension. So any engagement groups or anything that you can connect with, as many replies to this will be helpful to us in terms of what we're doing. Thank you.
Is council content to note the report? The report is noted. Item 12, I have received notice of 4 questions to lead members. We have only 30 minutes, so may I advise everyone to be concise and to avoid detailed introductions or explanations. May I remind members that in accordance with standing orders, any supplementary questions must be on matters that are within the remit of the Council's executive. I now invite Councillor Emma Dencote to ask a question to Councillor Kamali. Councillor Dencote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A year ago, the lead member for Environment and Leisure committed to work with the providers of e-bikes and e-scooters to control and regularise the parking and storing of electric vehicles. However, there's been no difference whatever to how e-bikes and e-scooters are parked, as we were hearing earlier from Mr. Condon-Simmons. From Kensington High Street to North Ken, we see them strewn across pavements, blocking the footpath and putting vulnerable residents in danger, and they are very heavy, you can't move them yourselves. I have tried. Telling residents to report this hazardous nuisance themselves to individual providers, which is the advice on the website, is not the answer. What is the council doing to clamp down on this daily nuisance, which are an irritant as well as a source of genuine danger to many people?
Councillor Kamali, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had a few titles, but lead member for Environment and Leisure isn't one that I remember. But just to say, I somewhat agree with you, to be honest. The e-bikes, when they first appeared in London, before they were electrified, they were dumped all over our streets, and they really did cause a hazard. These new e-bikes, I do agree, are very heavy to move, and they themselves have caused great issue. We heard earlier from Mairead about how they are being left on the pavement. I would say, though, that since we've introduced our mandatory bays, we were the second borough in London and we have one of the densest networks in London, there has been a marked improvement. And again, somewhat like the pigeon feeder, I happened upon a Lime Ranger this morning outside the town hall in a high-vis green vest. They were neatly lining up the bicycles, and they showed me how they now have to report each zone that they visit across the borough, take a photo once the bikes are neatly aligned before they're allowed to move on to the next one. I agree, it's not suitable for residents to have to report every single bike that's been left on the pavement. The fining mechanism does need to be increased, and indeed I was talking to London councils today about bringing forth a pan-London agreement in partnership with the Mayor and a number of boroughs across London. This will give us the powers that we sorely lack to actually ourselves fine the operators, but also the operators are keen to make this model work. It is in their interest to make sure that these bikes are used by our residents. They are very well used already, with hundreds of thousands of rides a month, so it's something that we do want to encourage, but we have to make sure that it's not at the detriment to those who are trying to use our pavements. As I say, since last year, we've rolled out more bays, we've taken positive action in engaging with the operators, and I would say it's not perfect. I certainly say it's not perfect, but it has definitely got better from the somewhat wild west that we had a year and a half ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Denko, do you have a supplementary question?
Very briefly, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be sending photographs of the last 6 weeks of various spots around St Helens Ward, which have been absolutely, there is no marked improvement whatever. So I don't know where these people are who are stacking them so neatly and taking photographs. They're certainly not happening in our patch. People are fed up with it.
Councillor Kamali?
Absolutely. They won't be coming to your patch because you refuse to have any bays in St Helens, so there's no bays for them to moderate. All they can do is walk around St Helens and wonder why it is that the independent councillor refused to engage in the process.
I now invite Councillor Walla Idris to ask a question to Councillor Jem Kamali. Councillor Idris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everyone. My question is foxes. What are we doing about them? I have been asked by residents if there is a humane way to reduce their numbers, because they are increasing and becoming more and more familiar with humans. Years ago, they used to run and hide when a human being appears. Now, they stop, stare, and check you out before quietly moving away. Some of my residents are very concerned for their safety, and rightly so. And the health ramifications brought by the rising numbers in this urban foxes. I mean, they seem to be a little bit urbanized, a little bit familiar, but a lot more menacing to a lot of people who don't feel comfortable with foxes living amongst them. Thank you.
Councillor Kamali, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Idris, I'm sure foxes are not the only animal to stop, or person rather, to stop, stare and check you out when you're walking around Brompton and Handstown. However, what can we do to make sure that they're not as bold as they've somehow become? As a borough, much like every other borough, we don't terminate foxes, we certainly don't kill them, and indeed many vets would not put down a healthy animal, and rightly so. So what we can do really is twofold. It's on all of us to make sure that we're not leaving out food waste and other things in our rubbish on the street for too long. We need to make sure that any food we do put in our rubbish is neatly packed and hopefully also stored in the appropriate places, either in the vaults or in proper receptacles outside of your home. But secondly, we also need to continue to report these issues when we do see bags on the street. You often find that the crows work in partnership with the foxes. First the crow picks it open and then the fox dives in afterwards. And we have to stop this unholy alliance by making sure that these bags aren't out for longer than they need be. Fortunately, we do still have twice weekly bins in this borough, unlike many other councils around London. So the bins aren't out there for too long, but it really is up to us to report when we do see rubbish that's being placed out incorrectly, and our street enforcement team, I think this month is 82 FPNs have been issued. Hopefully it will be more come February, but we have to tackle this issue to actually make sure that the foxes don't have access to food as easy as it's currently been. So thank you.
Councillor Idris, do you have a supplementary question?
A small one, thank you, and thank you, Jem, for this. I think also if we can put something on the website just to ease the minds of those residents who feel a little bit intimidated by foxes. Thank you.
Councillor Kamali?
Happily, yeah, good idea.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Portia Taxter to ask a question to Councillor Elizabeth Campbell. Councillor Taxter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Elizabeth Campbell, you must have heard this week at Grenfell Testimony Week the profound impact of the disaster upon members of the immediate community as well as the BSRs. Yeah? The annual public health summary, the Grenfell legacy feedback, shows the impactness and suffering of the immediate community as a result of the disaster. The Council has also acknowledged this in the global settlement. How does the Council propose to provide readiness and compensation to the rest of the immediate community and the other residents impacted by Grenfell?
Thank you for your question, Portia. As I said earlier tonight, the testimony so eloquently delivered by the bereaved and survivors laid bare, the profound tragedy and the profound impacts of it. And of course, this extends beyond the bereaved and survivors to the immediate community around the tower. A community who watched the tragedy unfolding, who lost friends, neighbours, family, and with the tower still standing as a constant reminder of that night. So, I agree, the immediate community is still suffering, both physically and mentally. And we've heard this in our recent consultation on what future support is needed, and we've also heard it through the work of the public health teams. Through the Global Settlement Agreement, there will be help available for all living within the immediate local community, both claimants and non-claimants. And we're working with local residents to design that future support to make sure that it meets their needs. But, as I said earlier, Testimony Week demands more than specific programs of support. It demands more than talk of commitments, promises, policies. It demands fundamental culture change. With everything we do as a council, we must treat people with humanity, with respect, with dignity, and we must listen and act, providing them with the support, as you've asked, that they need. Therefore, alongside the support we've already put in place to this community, I pledge to redouble our efforts to make that change happen and become the organisation the community expects us to be.
Councillor Taxter, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, just a little short one. Based on observation and on reflection, since Grenfell, for the last 6.5 years, I've realised the community, how their health has deteriorated. Service provisions have been put in place. They're not reaching who is supposed to be reached. People's health, their minds have been depleted. They cannot come back to no form of normality as a result of this. They're living in wonderland. I was asking about compensation, not support. So how can we compensate these people for the lack of actually living? They're not living, they're existing.
Councillor Campbell.
I think we can only do it with the NHS, but there is no monetary compensation coming beyond the global settlement that's been agreed. So what we can do is help people by asking them, which is what we're doing now, as what support would help them. And that's what we'll be doing over the next few months. And when we've had one set of consultations and it's come back, so we're analysing that. And then we'll be going back out to say, well, this is what we heard. Is this what you want? To make sure that it does meet their needs.
and then that will come to leadership team in, I think, in the spring, around Easter, April, May, and then we'll put the support in.
No comment, okay.
I now invite Councillor Sina Lowry to ask a question to Councillor Josh Randall. Councillor Lowry.
My question is, given the extraordinary rise in measles throughout Europe, considering the low MMR vaccination rate, by which I'm referring to both doses, in Kensington and Chelsea, and the consequent risk to children in our borough, how is the Council cooperating with health authorities to ensure there is adequate preparation, protection and response?
Councillor Randall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Sina, for your question. I think this is extremely important, and it's one that really goes to the heart of our communities here in the borough. Sina's absolutely right. We are having exponential measles outbreaks, and we're doing everything we can with our partners at the ICB in order to ensure that as many children as possible get immunised, both doses, as you say. We're also working with our fantastic community champions, who are people who are in the community, everyday residents that encourage other people to get health care and health checks, because the most important thing is having people from the community telling you as well and informing you of the best decisions that you can make around your healthcare. So that's extremely important as well. We're working with the schools and nurseries all around the borough, and I know my colleague Councillor Folkes is also over risk from that perspective, in order to get as many vaccinations we can at the school. We will continue to monitor the measles outbreak as best as we can. It's not anywhere near as bad as the West Midlands, I may say that, Madam Mayor, but if we will continue to monitor every day with our ICB partners and our other health partners we have as well, including our school's immunisation team at the same time. But thank you.
Lowry, do you have any questions?
I thank Councillor Rendell for his response. I agree with a lot of what he said, and that the fact that the borough is taking it seriously. My follow-up is more on vaccinations in general. We aren't only amongst the worst for MMR, but we are amongst the worst for every other vaccine when it comes to uptake in the country. We are either the first or second worst of any local authority in London. Fewer than 50% of our elderly people, for example, have even taken the flu vaccine. So it's not just uptake amongst babies and young people, it's also amongst the elderly. So how can the council do its best to promote the prevention of disease through vaccination, the importance of informing and educating both parents and people of all ages about the importance of uptake and completion of doses in order to prevent epidemics going forward?
Councillor Randall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Lowry is absolutely right. Vaccination is the best prevention against our most challenging diseases. And I think we were, in 2016, Madam Mayor, almost measles-free. So it's a really important thing, not just measles, but with flu and other forms of vaccination, rubella, etc., that we encourage the communities as much as possible to get that done and get their proper health checks. As I said, members of the community, can promote your own healthcare internally, which is what we've got our community champions for, again, which is really, really important. Councillor Lowry is absolutely right. We're working closely with our NHS colleagues on a range of issues. We've got a NHS van, similar to what we did in COVID, going out into the community to try and encourage as many flu vaccinations as possible. I've asked if that can also be encouraging measles vaccination as well, because we're approaching the end of the winter season now. Perhaps flu isn't as prevalent as it was perhaps 3 or 4 months ago, to ensure that kind of comes out as well. And we also did have a pop-up vaccination bus that went to Barlby School previously. Again, we're trying to push for something similar along those lines as well, so actually people can access their particular vaccinations in the community, not just at a GP or pharmacy, perhaps where they are not able to get to as well. So absolutely right, and we'll continue to work along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 13. I have received 4 requests to speak under Standing Order 11. Could the following members please speak for up to 2 minutes each on a ward or other live issue of a general rule principle? Councillor Joanna Gardner, Councillor Tom Bennett, Councillor Will Lane, and then Councillor Linda Wade. So Councillor Gardner, please.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to update you on the Notting Hill Gate Community Working Group, work which you were involved in prior to your mayoralty, as you, alongside Councillor Fawkes and Councillor North, represent one side of Notting Hill Gate, and your Deputy Mayor and I represent the other side. The Council's Growth and Delivery team have been working with a group of residents, businesses and residents associations from the local community over the past year, and they're about to launch a public consultation on a draft Notting Hill Gate action plan. This will run until Sunday the 10th of March. The consultation shows a series of possible projects for Notting Hill Gate Town Centre. That's Notting Hill Gate itself, Pembridge Road and the top of Kensington Church Street. And it seeks to hear what residents, visitors and businesses alike would like to see here in the future. The goal is to help the area become greener, safer and fairer, and to seek to address climate change in small ways, whilst also celebrating its unique culture and heritage. The aim is to have a blueprint of possible schemes which will improve the area so that as pots of money come available, the projects will be delivered. But we do need to hear from people so as to gauge the public reaction, to discard elements that aren't popular and to help prioritise those that are. So the Notting Hill Gate draft action plan will be appearing on the Council's consultation website page very shortly, along with a feedback form until Sunday the 10th of March. So I ask you and all my colleagues today to spread the word and make sure that you and others have a say in helping to design the future of Notting Hill Gate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tom Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just thought members might be interested to know a bit more about the local development order we're in the process of introducing in Redcliffe Ward. Now, a local development order, as I'm sure you all know, is a planning mechanism laid out in section 61A of the Town and Country Planning Act 2015. And what it does is effectively extend permitted development rights in a very specific way just within the local planning authority. Now, what we're doing on Redcliffe Road is a resident contacted us about wanting to build a mansard. Now, unfortunately, it's in a conservation area, like 70% of our borough, which makes us very unusual compared to other boroughs. And planning officers felt, understandably, that one person building a mansard in one design and then someone else in another design over time would contribute towards a detriment to the conservation area. So what we've done here, and officers led by Jonathan Wade have done some fantastic work, is set out a standard design, and then the plan is to effectively give permitted development rights. In this case, it's just on one side of the street, but to the whole side of the street. So residents can then build that mansard without applying for planning permission, as long as it's to that design set out in the local development order, which has been constructed by our planning and heritage officers. And I think it's a fantastic innovation. It shows our commitment to maintaining the heritage and the aesthetic of our borough, whilst also allowing residents to expand their homes and to create family homes, which we know are so hard to come by. So I will keep members updated, but hopefully it's something we can introduce in other wards as well across the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Will Lane, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to talk about MacLeod's Mews, a lovely little mews in the south of Queen's Gate. The reason is, Madam Mayor, there was a wall in MacLeod's Mews that directly adjoined the tube line, the Circle and District line, that runs above ground in that area. Noticing the wall was in a state of disrepair, or should I say, was completely fallen away, we wanted to get it fixed and repaired. Back in 2022, May 2022, TfL finally admitted that the wall was their responsibility because it abutted the tube line. In June 2023, more than a year later, TfL said their plan was to complete works by October 2023. Now, that's quite a long time, nearly a year and a half, but we thought the wall's going to be repaired. October 2023 came and went. The wall is still fallen away. Now, a couple of days ago, councillors, my colleagues in Queensgate Ward, who worked really hard on this, were informed by TfL that they now plan to complete works in 2026. Now, when asking why, they could not share an engineering report, or more precisely, there was no engineering report to share. Now, 2026 is a very long time away. In fact, based on current trends, the Kensington-Chelsea Labour group is predicted to drop to 2 members by that point in time. It's that far away. So, in all seriousness and without jesting, I would welcome this council calling upon TfL to bring these works forward so that the residents of MacLeod's Mews can finally have their wall back. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yesterday there was an incident with a 328 bus going into a building at the junction of Finborough, Warwick and Old Brompton Road. Fortunately, nobody was apparently hurt, although there was extensive damage to the top deck of the bus. This highlights the issue of speed and the safety of this junction. This is not the first time there's been a bus-related incident at this junction, on occasions causing serious life-changing injury and death. There have been a series of representations made by Councillors Nichols, Spalding, Williams and myself over the years to both TfL and the borough to create a junction that is safe, secure and responds to both traffic and pedestrian needs. Design treatments have been discussed, consulted on, but nothing's happened. It's a very dangerous crossing close to an old residence home and a route for local schools. We're repeatedly promised a new junction plan and nothing materializing. How many deaths or injuries must happen before TfL actually act? The design and functionality of this junction must be reviewed, redesigned, and delivered to improve resident safety on north side of the junction and to improve the feeder lane to anticipate construction traffic from the Earls Court development. I would ask the lead member to ensure that TfL come forward with proposals and a timescale. This is urgent, and I look forward to an update from the lead member that covers this particular area. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 14, members will see that we have 5 motions printed in the agenda. Motion 1 is about antisocial behaviour. As Councillor Verboen has submitted his apologies for this meeting, this motion will be deferred to the next council meeting. After consultation with the whips and using my authority under Standing Order 1.03, I am going to alter the agenda order, and the next motion is number 4 on the agenda, which is about the River Thames Conservation Area. Under Standing Order 19.11, I would like to request the Council accept the altered motion as the original motion as set out on pages 85 of the supplementary agenda pack. Does everyone agree? I call on Councillor Hargreaves formally to move the motion, standing in his name, and Councillor Zrednuik to second.
Move the motion, Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Hargreaves, sorry, Councillor Zrednuik. Would you like to second? I now invite Councillor Hargreaves to speak for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And the motion before us this evening focuses on a very particular part of Chelsea Riverside Ward, the Thames Conservation Area, and specifically the completion of the Conservation Area Management Plan. And for those of you who know this part of our borough, it is steeped in history. And I urge members to watch or re-watch, if you watched it, the film A Man for All Seasons, which is largely based on the years that Thomas More lived in this part of Chelsea. And when you watch that, you will come to understand the importance of the river to this particular part of Chelsea. It is also, the river frontage is also featured in the painting of the world-famous artist James Whistler and the writings of John Betjeman. It is a very special area and something we regard as very special ourselves. And now it is home to the residents that live on the houseboats moored along the river. A diverse community with two things in common. They enjoy living in this part of Chelsea and they love living on the river. For many, this is their main residence and they have invested large amounts of their own capital in their boats. Like all special things, it needs special protection. Right now, the Chelsea Thames community and the future of the houseboats as we know them and the appearance of that river frontage is under threat. The recent arrival of 3 brand new, near identical in appearance and very much larger multi-berth apartment boats, also being advertised as on short-term lets at enormous monthly rentals, is already beginning to have a detrimental impact on the lives of the houseboat residents along this much cherished part of Chelsea landscape. So now is the time to act, and that is what this motion is urging the Council to do. At the last AGM of the Chelsea Society, 3 motions were passed relating to this issue. And one of those motions specifically called upon the Council to adopt the River Thames Conservation Area Management Plan without delay. As Chelsea River Ward councillors, we support this. In order for the conservation area to mean anything, it needs an effective and robust management plan. Madam Mayor, there has already been considerable delay in the completion of the current management plan, indeed too much delay, much to the frustration of local residents and the wider community. Part of that delay has been due to the lack of clarification in the role of planning regulations in relation to residential riverboats. This is a complex matter. Both the Council and Local Amenity Society, chiefly Cheney Walk Trust and Chelsea Society, have separately sought legal advice, a legal opinion on this, and together the 2 relevant barristers have met and agreed specific circumstances under which the Council can apply enforcement for breaching planning regulations. And following a very productive meeting towards the end of last year with the leader, the Chief Executive, the lead member and representatives from the Cheney Society and the Cheney Walk Trust, a clear way forward was agreed. With this outstanding issue resolved, it should now be possible to complete the management plan and the Council to opt it without further delay. As a Council, we have a good record on addressing difficult planning issues. And I was reminded by Councillor Withers, it was over 10 years ago when we faced a problem with the owners of public houses wanting a change of use to allow them to be developed into housing. And a motion following a motion at the Council urging the Council to carry out a review of their local development framework to protect community public houses, especially historic public houses, we were able to do that and prevent them being converted into homes. When we had a problem with mega basements, we introduced an Article 4 to restrict them to 1 floor. With the will, we can do it. So in completing the management plan, this motion calls on the Council to review all the possible policies, and if policies don't exist, find ways of creating them to make them exist, to protect this area of Chelsea from overdevelopment along the river frontage. Madam Mayor, I hope all members will support this motion tonight, and with the backing of a robust River Thames Conservation Area Management Plan, we can protect and preserve the houseboat community and the character and charm of this very special part of Chelsea. Madam Mayor, as I said earlier, we need to act now before it is too late. and I urge all members to support this motion.
Councillor Zvodennik, would you like to speak to this point? Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll be brief because my ward colleague, Councillor Hargreaves, has addressed this issue quite thoroughly. I'm proud to be a councillor representing one of the most unique and diverse wards in the borough. Chelsea Riverside is home to RBKC's houseboat community, and the Chelsea and Cadogan piers, at which traditional houseboats are moored and have been moored for decades, are an essential part of the character of the Thames Conservation Area. But this is at risk of being spoiled, with the introduction of larger vessels that simply don't in any way resemble a traditional houseboat. And we were pleased at the end of last year that the Council's Planning Committee voted to back houseboat residents and hope that this continues in the future. Any changes in the River Thames Conservation Area must preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the area. And I would argue that the replacement of traditional boats with large box-like floating structures does the very opposite of this. So I urge the Council to use its legal powers, knowing that it's a complex issue, to prevent this from happening, because it really does have a devastating impact on local residents, both on the embankment and residents living in the houseboats. So I hope all members support the motion and help protect this special and historic part of Chelsea.
I will now open the motion up to debate. Councillors who have indicated that they wish to speak are Councillor Josh Randall, Councillor Emma Will, Councillor Linda Wade, Councillor Claire Simmons. Councillor Josh Randall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Chelsea Riverside councillors for putting this motion up to debate tonight. Now, unlike Sonia and Gerard, I don't have the privilege of having a riparian ward, but having the river run through Kingston Chelsea is of extreme importance. And as Gerard has said, the historic nature of Chelsea should be a priority for this council. When you come down the Thames, Madam Mayor, from Westminster or Greenwich, there is no more beautiful part in central London than when you reach Chelsea Bridge. And from Chelsea Bridge down to the World's End Estate, you know you have come to somewhere special. It's not overdeveloped. There's no tall, towering, ugly glass buildings. There is no, and there is many opportunities for you to walk along the river on that front as well, especially from the Royal Hospital down to the boats. Now, we want to protect that. We don't want this to be another part of London. We don't want this to be a generic riverside view which is just used for industrial purposes. The houseboats are an integral part of the community and an integral part of Chelsea. I can't think of Chelsea without the houseboats, Madam Mayor, because they make the area so different and so unique. We have many, many interesting and fascinating residents that live on the houseboats and really want to protect their communities, because that's what it is, Madam Mayor. It is a community. It's a small, tight-knit community that not only exists just on the houseboats, but right throughout the borough. Now, when I was first elected, Madam Mayor, in 2018, we had our first kind of award, drop-in session with Councillor Taylor-Smith and Councillor Pascal, and we were blessed to have all the houseboats come up, well, they didn't come up the road, but the houseboat residents, I should say, came to see us. And it was a real powerful community moment. And that was all the way back in 2018. Now, this issue has been going on for a very, very long time. And with the introduction of these new, hideous, large boats, is destroying the community. And it's not only destroying the community in terms of its impact on the environment, on the public realm, but also destroying the community because of our local community don't really feel respected or indeed trusted within for the landlord who owns the boat. So this is why I really support the motion. As Councillor Hargreaves says, absolutely support everything we can do in order to support our houseboat community, not just for ourselves, not just for the Chelsea Society, but really for the historic nature of Chelsea and what makes it special. So that's what I'd like to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Will, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have been so heartened tonight hearing how colleagues across the council have come together on the important matters around mental health. And it reminds me that when we work together, we can do really good things. And in its own way, this is another example of, I think, where we can hopefully agree unanimously to support this motion, because this is something that really matters to our residents, not just the residents now, but residents in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, because as everyone in this chamber knows, this is a very, very special part of our borough. And I feel very lucky, both as a ward councillor for Royal Hospital, but also as a long-standing resident, to be able to live and enjoy this area, and I want others to do so in the future. I want to say also thank the residents who've been Chelsea Waters, Chelsea Society and the Cheney Walk Trust, who've been so active and vocal, and Councillor Knight rightly said it's our duty to support their voices. And I know that their ward councillors, and in fact Councillor Kamali, have really been trying to do everything they can. It is a complicated situation because there isn't planning in place to protect the boats as they currently are. And I'm reminded, as Councillor Hargreaves said, about the pubs motion that I was seconded in 2011, and also the basements, where basically planning law just doesn't exist because the situation has changed. And we're told repeatedly, oh, there's nothing we can do. Well, there's a saying in our family, where there's a will, there's a way. And sorry, terrible pun. But as I mentioned, in 2011, when we brought the pubs motion, we were told we couldn't do it, but officers took that on board. They took the instruction to go and find a way, and they did, and it took 2 years. And I really hope that this will be a similar situation tonight, that this will be beginning of a process to ensure that this area remains special forever. Thank you.
Councillor Linda Wade, please.
Thank you. It's a wonder that this area of significant archaeology and artistic interest has not had a completed appraisal before. Indeed, some residents have actually been complaining about the length of time that it's taken to get to this place. And it's also interesting that how it's separated from Cheney Walk, and in fact, it's so integral to Cheney Walk, so why wasn't it within the Cheney Walk conservation area? Noticeable is lack of great detail in the Thames Conservation Area appraisal of the actual houseboats and the context of the houseboats within the area. And it's the riverside that has been used for centuries for boats, houseboats contribute, and it says in the report, character and appearance of the area. So the houseboats are under threat. They're under threat from the developers. They're under threat from the oversized boats that are coming along, which they're out of scale for the other boats and the immediate streetscape. So I do support this, and I think that we really do need to get all of the policies aligned to support the protection of this very unique area. Thank you.
Councillor Claire Simmons, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm fully in support of this motion, and I would like to take this opportunity to applaud the lead member and the planning committee for their work on the recent planning enforcement decision. I do continue to urge the council to continue to do everything it can to support, protect and preserve our valued Chelsea houseboat community who are currently under threat. This council has learned the hard way the importance of putting people before profit, and I'm really heartened to see this motion in support of residents, and I hope that the council will action very urgently the request. I'd just like to add, we did hear earlier this evening about how some residents have had to fight for 11 years or more to get what they need from this council. So although I really don't want to detract for a moment from the substance of the motion, as an aside, I would also just like to remind the councillors, especially those sponsoring this motion, that in RBKC every citizen is equal. the support and respect that we owe to the heritage of our borough and to our communities and residents is and should be irrespective of occupational background. I'm saying this because the opening paragraph of your motion actually has echoes of the Leon Russellson song, Palaces of Gold, which I urge you all to listen to if you don't already know it. For the son of a company director or a judge's fine and private daughter, buttons will be pressed, rules will be broken, strings will be pulled, and magic words spoken. Invisible fingers will mould palaces of gold. And this song was written to commemorate Emma Van, and I think it applies as well to all avoidable losses of life that occur to disadvantaged communities. I think and I hope that we can all agree that prejudice and preference has no place in RBKC, the Grenfell Council.
Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just start by thanking Elizabeth, our leader, for her very heartfelt speech today, and a timely reminder to all of us about the importance of care. Thank you, Elizabeth. And just as an aside, it's been quite an emotional meeting for Elizabeth because she's welcoming in a new grandson, George, who's
Congratulations.
And I suppose there's a bit of a theme of care to my speech. I'm looking at this motion in a slightly different way. First of all, I very much support the bringing it into the conservation area and what we're going to do from a planning perspective. But I wanted to touch a little bit about the relationship with the operator and the community as well. Because these boats clearly are things, the changing nature, it's changing. We've heard about the history. And they've been there for over 300 years, I'm told. So in 2017, I met with the new owners and operators of the moorings to discuss the future of Old Ferry Wharf. And also because we had been seeing quite a lot of friction between the new owners and the people who actually were on the boats as well. Anyway, it was a positive meeting. We made it very clear, we stated our intention that their existing lease, protected lease, which was expiring in 2022, was going to come for an end. And we saw Old Ferry as an opportunity of improvement, and so we weren't going to renew that. And that's something which, in terms of place shaping, will be coming forward fairly soon. So we gave them a 5-year lease in terms of operating, but we very much had positive meeting to talk about the importance of working with our local community. And there were certainly assurances made to me about not wanting to change the look and damage and the views of Cheney Walk, and the importance of fostering good working relationships. And I'm pleased that Councillor Randall has reminded me of the meeting that we had in 2018 with the residents, and I thought it was quite timely to actually read the letter from the Chelsea Yacht and Boat Company to the residents, and some highlighted paragraphs. So first of all, dear resident, we wanted to write to express you to reassure of our deep commitment to preserving the future and character of Cadogan Pier. As owners, we completely support the view of the mooring, that the moorings must be protected. We are committed to preserving the character of the area. Furthermore, we will not allow large floating super yachts or the creation of a super yacht marina. And as Elizabeth and I have the testimony of this, and the issue obviously in terms of truth, care and honesty, it sounds very loud, and I very much hope that we will have further engagement, it's not within my portfolio, with the owners about the importance of meeting their commitments. And in supporting this moting, I just wanted to hope that the operators recognise and reaffirm the words of their letter to residents in 2018, and particularly the final paragraph, which is a lesson to us all. And that is, we want to work with local residents and the wider community and councillors of all political parties to ensure Cadogan Pier and the Chelsea Yacht and Boat Company remain a wonderful, safe and unique environment. Please be rest assured of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I now invite Councillor Jem Kamali as lead member to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes. Councillor Kamali, please.
Madam Mayor, I had written a speech, but so much of it has been discussed here already. I should say I'm frankly incredibly fortunate that as a resident of Chelsea Riverside, I have such active ward councillors fighting to protect the walk from my house to my parents' house as I go to look after their dog. The houseboats, as we've already heard tonight, are an incredible part of Chelsea. They're an eclectic mix of artists, painters, lawyers, indeed some KCs also live there. And we want to protect that charm. We feel that that charm and that character is being eroded. Our planning committee in December came to the view that they believe harm is indeed being felt in the strict planning sense, and they've asked officers to go away and investigate thoroughly and bring that back for a further report that we hope will be later this winter, ideally sometime before Purda. We want to make sure that we are testing planning law as it stands, but we also set the challenge here tonight, cross-party hopefully, or cross-multiple parties hopefully, that officers think again about what other policies may exist, a little bit of lateral thinking, as in the case of the pubs and the iceberg basements, to find a route to make sure that we can protect the Chelsea houseboats such that people can make movies and write and draw and paint them into the history for years to come. We want our officers to work with us. We believe they do already intend to help us, but we want to see the Thames Conservation Management Plan brought forward ahead of perhaps even the local plan to make sure we can deliver it as soon as possible. We know the local plan has met with some delays, but this cannot wait any longer. We have to make sure that this is in front of the Chamber to be voted on and supported by our councillors sometime in the near future. So I look forward to taking that vote when it comes. Thank you.
I now invite Councillor Hargreaves, mover of the motion, to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes. Councillor Hargreaves.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I will be very brief and just thank all the people who've spoken this evening and how good it is to have support right across the Chamber from the parties represented here. And as we've heard from the people who spoke, you were emphasising, as I did, the importance of this area, but also this is about people's lives and it's about where they live and it's about protecting where they choose to live and how they wish to live. So I'd also like to thank Councillor Taylor-Smith for putting a little bit of context there about the ownership and some history there that we need to be reminded of, and we need to continue to remind people of, particularly the owners of the boat yards themselves. So finally, thank you to Councillor Kamali as lead member for your commitment. We've all heard it, however many people are here in the Chamber tonight, and we've witnessed it, that we need to find a way of finishing this management plan, but finishing it with teeth and practical content to help us protect this area. So thank you very much to everybody who spoke, and I do urge everybody to support this motion tonight. Thank you.
I now put the motion to the vote. Would those for the motion please show? Would those against the motion please show? Are there any abstentions? One abstention, okay. I declare the motion carried. Given the time, may I please ask the whips, shall we call it a day?
Mention the strikes.
Yes, and there are train strikes as well, so, okay, thank you. Item 15, the nominations listed in the agenda pack have been withdrawn. Are there any appointments from the groups? Councillor Tarasitis to move and to add that.
Yes, I'd like to move the nomination standing in my name, Madam Mayor.
I do need to. Sorry, I'm supposed to read it all out, so I will. Apologies. Okay, Councillor Tarasitis to move and to add that Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith is nominated to replace Councillor Hargreaves as a voting member at Al Manar Muslim Cultural Heritage Centre.
Yes, indeed. I beg to move the nomination standing in my name, Mrs. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Sina Laurie, would you like to appoint Toby Benton to the Planning Committee pool?
Thank you.
Okay. Are we all agreed on that? Thank you. There is no urgent business to bring to the Council's attention. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The next meeting of the Council is the Budget Full Council meeting scheduled to be held on the 28th of February 2024. And may I just say one more thing? I would strongly like to second Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith's sentiment about Councillor Elizabeth Campbell's speech. It was very moving, and it must have been a very tough week for everyone involved. Thank you all. Good evening.